Good evening and welcome to the City of Pasco workshop meeting this sad day of February 12th, 2024. I know you are all mourning with me. The 49ers lost and probably equally another Chiefs win, which is just as disappointing. Nonetheless, we are here together, so thank you for being with us. Um, the City Council thanks you for being a part of our city government. At workshop meetings, the council discusses issues, but no formal action is taken. Agenda packets are available on the city's website at www.pasco-wa.gov/agenda. And for those in person, back to my right, adjacent to the door on the table. This meeting is also being televised live on PSC TV channel 191, on Spectrum Cable in Pasco and Richland, and is streamed on the city's Facebook page, website, YouTube channel, and GoToWebinar. This and previous council meeting video is available on the city's website. Lastly, the public may submit comments or ask questions by contacting the city manager, city clerk, or by using the Ask Pasco app. Again, we do not take comments during these workshop meetings. And with that, Madam Clerk.
Council members Blaisdell,
Present.
Barajas,
Present.
Grimm,
Here.
Harpster,
Present.
Perales,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Milne,
Present.
and Mayor Serrano.
Present. Thank you. If you all please stand with me and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. With that, do we have any verbal reports from council members? That's item number 4 for those tracking. I see Councilmember Grimm.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I did attend my very first Benton Franklin Transit meeting this since we met last time, and largely just an orientation. They did have a full house because they are working through some things that I'm excited to be a part of. I was also with a couple other council members at the Police District 1 Business Watch meeting, just working with businesses on the east of the 395 and coordinating with police and trying to keep our businesses functioning and safe. I also went unofficially to the Pasco Chamber Economic Development Committee, and that was really interesting. Heard a really good presentation about the AIM Center there at the airport and the potential investment of infrastructure there. And then even today, also unofficially, I was at Chiawana High School speaking to Kids for Career Days. So been busy out in the community, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Grimm. Thank you for your attendance to all those. Mr. Milne.
Well, it wasn't as packed as Councilman Grimm's, but I did have the COPA meeting last week, and the board added Councilwoman Blanche Ross to the board, and then she actually got promoted on top of that. If she wants to say more of it, I'll let her have her glory there. And then also I did attend the chamber lunch today with Councilwoman Blasdale, and they had talked about the Columbia Basin Water Project and how vital it is for our community and the different ways that we could be involved. So otherwise, it was a pretty good week.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Milne. Councilwoman Barajas.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to elaborate a little bit about the COPA meeting. COPA, as you know, is a collaboration between a private entity, nonprofit entity, and they have formed this collaboration as part of the friendship agreement with Colima and between Colima and Pasco. I had not been part of the board. I had been attending meetings here and there just as we were planning the trip to Mexico, and it was at this past meeting that I was finally allowed to be part of the board. And not only that, there was a process of selection of some new members for their executive group, and so I was nominated, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Milne, as the vice chair, and so it was a unanimous, and so I'm the vice chair for the group, Sylvia Gonzalez being the chair of the group. Nothing. We're just planning the coming of the group from Colima. There's going to be several dignitaries coming in June. So as part of the meeting, it's the planning and coordination of the events that will be taking place when they are here. That's it.
Well, thank you for that update. Seeing no further, I will just note, a friend of mine posted on Facebook, her son wrestles for Chiawana, and they're actually in seeking their 5th straight state championship title. So this week they're doing a send-off in the Chiawana parking lot Thursday at 9:30 a.m. And again, that's Thursday 9:30 in the morning to send off the boys of the state. There are several individual wrestlers who are actually seeking titles, some back to back, etc. And again, the team itself is seeking a 5th straight state,
That's awesome.
5th straight state title. So that's pretty awesome. Those, kudos to those kids. With that, we'll move on to item number 5, and item A is the Downtown Pasco Development Authority update. I believe Deputy City Manager Sigdell is going to kick us off here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and evening council. Past councils have emphasized downtown revitalization for the at least last 15 years, if not longer. This focus shows a significant economic investment that City of Pasco Council have made to make our downtown more vibrant. You will see this investment in significant capital projects like Lewis Street Overpass, Penis Park Restoration, purchase of parcel formerly at the Thunderbird Motel, Pasco Specialty Kitchen, and many more. Similarly, City Council has also directed staff to complete a comprehensive downtown master plan, and the recommendations from which are being implemented as we speak. When a city looks to revitalize its downtown, a common partner that it looks to create is called a Public Development Association or Authority, and I'll just call it a PDA. And the reason that many cities create a PDA is because they're ruled by a slightly different set, and I will look to our attorney here to set me right. But there are certain restrictions that we have as a city, and a PDA is ruled under slightly set of different rules within which they are a little bit freer to be able to revitalize a downtown or any part of a city. So with that, the City of Pasco has made significant investment to the community in the last 15 years and a lot longer. I just bring up 15 years because that is how long it has been since we've created the Downtown Pasco Public Development Association, so DPDA. The topic of the discussion today is the recent audit that the State Auditor's Office had performed for DPDA. One thing of note is that it expands 3 years, so 2020, 2021, and 2022. So they're looking at those 3 years and how that operation or the organization has been run on specific areas. When the city gets audited, we get audited on a yearly basis. In fact, we have 3 different audits. And the first audit is, did we do our financial reports correctly? So were the numbers that you reported to the state correct? As in, you did not overstate, you did not understate. Did you put the things in the right column, which is there are certain standards there. And then there's a second audit, which is if we received federal grants or even large state grants. And they're looking at specifically grants and making sure that we are meeting all of the requirements of the grant, whatever they may be. So it's a contract. Did you meet the terms of the contract? The third audit that the city goes through is an accountability audit. Accountability audit, I would say, is the most important audit that any organization needs to go through and also pass with flying colors. And the reason I say that is because it truly shows you whether you have some of the basics down and you have it down on a regular basis. So it's looking at your policies, it's looking at this, be the federal rules or state or your own policies, our own AOs or our own PMCs, the municipal codes. And it's making sure that we're following those rules as we've written. Also, it's looking at our accounts payable and making sure that we have the right backup to pay somebody. So those are really critical things as you pass the accounts payable every other week, that you can know that though all of those invoices are vetted and vetted well. And so those are called internal controls. So if I receive an invoice, it's not just me who receives the invoice. I say it's good to pay and I pay it. We ensure that it goes through several layers. So there's enough people looking at those invoices and making sure that that is an appropriate amount to pay for the services that we received. There's also many other rules that govern a city, but any organization. If you are in a private organization, rules might be as your board sets it. But as a public agency, we do have a lot more rules through which we have to make sure that our internal controls pass those tests. And that's what we get from State Auditor's Office on a very regular basis, on a yearly basis. Similarly, for DPDA, they get audited on a biennial basis, so every other year. The reason for that is they're not as big as us. I'm not exactly sure what the criteria are for the State Auditor's Office to audit them, but that is the audit that we're here to discuss. On a little bit of a history, in 2010, City of Pasco Council passed Ordinance 3985, and that was to create the DPDA. And there were very specific purpose that the council at the time had laid out. It was to review city's plans and policies that affect downtown, especially around land use, financing strategies, especially for public-private collaborations. This is another thing that I mentioned earlier, where it is a little bit easier for a PDA to do public-private collaboration than maybe for a city. Marketing the downtown area, facade improvement, business assistance, and promotional events. So these were some of the purposes that were explicitly laid out by the council at the time. The agreement with the city is that when we created the DPDA, that DPDA would be responsible for its own debts, obligations, and liabilities because they would be a separate agency. However, we're connected in that council selects the board of directors for the DPDA, and then those board of directors would then select their executive director, and that executive director would then be in charge of the operations of the organization. And hence it has its own corporate powers and its own responsibilities. There's a board that governs it, gives it direction, and so it is its own operational entity. And please stop me if you have any questions at any point. As I mentioned, the audit overview that traditionally happens, and I covered most of this, is that we are in compliance with state law and regulation. Same thing for DPDA, but they also look to make sure that all of the internal controls are strong, that are in place, and they're followed on as a part of operations. The audit areas, similar for us, for the city, is that because they cannot review every area that a city or an organization is operating under, usually they will come in and look at the most riskiest ones. This can happen if you've had a finding in the past years, they'll come back and they'll take a look at that area again. Or if they're seeing a trend across the state or the country, they will come in and take a look and kind of select these areas. For DPDA, some of the audit areas that they selected, and by they I mean the State Auditor's Office, was accounts payable, cash receipting, compliance with grant terms, Open Public Meetings Act compliance, timeliness of report filing and completeness, and their financial condition. And the results for those areas was that there was close to $600,000 over the 3 years where the invoices were not adequately supported to validate that it was legitimate for the business use. So there were significant internal control issues at place, as in missing invoices where the state auditor's office was not able to validate that they were for business purposes because they're missing at this time. There were issues with cash receipting, not as significant of an amount. There was also private grant funding, and even though it's private, because DPDA is a public agency, the state auditor's office would ensure that they're meeting the requirements of that grant. So there was about $630,000 in grant funding, where the state auditor's office was not able to validate that they complied with the requirements of the grant. There's also something called a financial condition, and this is a little bit tricky because smaller organizations always struggle with this, which is how much cash in hand do you have to be solvent? Usually 30 to 45 days is considered healthy for most organizations, but when you're small, that's hard sometimes depending on which day you show up and which day you're getting audited. But that was also an issue for DPD as well, as in they had 12 days of cash on hand at the time that they were audited. There was also significant failure to meet the Open Public Meetings Act requirements as well. The current status as the city stands with DPDA, in 2023, City Council approved $240,000 in funding to DPDA. This is usually higher than the normal $120,000, and we did make an initial payment of $120,000. However, the remainder of the $120,000 went unpaid in 2023 because the significant tasks that Council had tasked DPDA to complete for that $240,000 were not completed. So essentially, we did not pay for things that were not done. As a part of the new funding agreement, we also asked for more financial oversight, which is a little bit different because they are a different organization. And seeing some of the issues that have happened in the past audits, we asked for more conversations and oversight by the city on in terms of operations, especially around controls. So there was a kickoff meeting between DPDA staff and city staff in 2022, late 2022, and also we started some recurring weekly meetings in 2023 as well. After the last executive director resigned from DPDA, City assumed all operational and financial control of the farmers market and the Pasco Specialty Kitchen. We also started organizing events like Fiery Foods Festival and then upcoming Cinco de Mayo. All claims for farmers market and Pasco Specialty Kitchen that could be adequately supported were paid by the city as we assumed that operation. Some of the pending items that we have are claims that are adequately supported, but they've not been paid yet. And this is something as we move forward would need to resolve. There are software subscriptions, property insurance, the cost to do the audit itself, which is a significant amount. There's also an issue out there pending of W-2s for employees in 2023, and also IRS reports and filings. So these are things that as we take our next steps, depending on council's direction, we would have to resolve as we go. And but these are things that are pending at this time that that need to be resolved in one form or another. We're not quite sure what that will be at this time. With all of the issues that we've laid out, staff is recommending that we disillusion the agency. At this point, there's been significant lack of trust from the public for the particular agency itself. We're definitely not planning to give any public funding for this year. At least we've not had this discussion. We've not paid for half of the last funding from the city because those tasks were not delivered. And just the audit itself and the magnitude of the results and the findings is what has resulted in staff to recommend the dissolution of the agency. And I will say, on behalf of our attorney, is that there are some risks with the dissolution itself. However, we do believe that that is the best path forward. And with that, I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Sigdell. Council Member Harpster.
Yeah, thank you for that presentation. Just following up on the end of your presentation, what are the risks with moving forward with discontinuing this?
I will ask Mr. Ferguson to respond to that.
So, as you can imagine, this isn't something that happens all too often. It's obviously something, not something that we're very experienced in. This is as Ms. Sigdell said, this is a public corporation and it has its own bylaws. And the reason for that is to make sure that there's really a firewall between liability, between the activities of that particular organization and the city, but at the same time be able to still take advantage of some of the grant opportunities, some of the other things that are really focused, what that organization can really focus on. So when that no longer seems to be the case, or when that no longer fits the purpose, then there's the process of dissolving it. So it's a little bit of a hybrid between, say, something in a private corporation dissolution, some of the same kind of characteristics, but then obviously it still has, and bear with me when I say this, it's a legally defined as a special purpose quasi-municipal corporation. So that's just a fancy way of saying it's not a private corporation, but at the same time it still has some of the same characteristics, so they can operate in certain ways that local governments really aren't able to. So with that being said, going through the dissolution process is a little interesting in the sense that there's not a whole lot out there. There is a statute that talks about dissolution, and basically what it says is that the Superior Court in the county in which it's located has authority to be able to take over as an appointed receiver or go through certain assets if there's certain types of assets that need to be dissolved, or based on the charter. So then we kind of work our way back, and we've had to really spend a lot of time trying to figure out, okay, well, what does that actually look like? What would that process of dissolution look like? So going through the bylaws, there's nothing there. Going through the charter, there's nothing there. Really, the only thing that we have to rely on about how this process goes, or how dissolution would go, is in the enacting ordinance. And it talks about how the council can, if for any reason believes that it's no longer fit purpose, they can go through this process, and there's a couple steps we would need to take with regard to notice to the board, so that they would have an opportunity if they felt that they didn't want dissolution, the council to take that step. But the main thing is really about asset distribution and liabilities. And in this particular case, because there is no liability for the city per statute, per charter, per enacting ordinance. So there really is a really thick firewall between any of the liabilities that the DPDA would have back on the city, so that couldn't take place. The process for going through this really is focused on what happens to any of the assets. It doesn't sound like there's going to be too much, but again, we still have to kind of go through those steps. And the only thing that really says in our charter, or excuse me, in the enacting ordinance, is that we have to go through that process, give them an opportunity, the board, if anyone wants to come address council, and then make sure that the assets are properly distributed back to the city before a dissolution can take place. That's really all there is in terms of process. So not a whole lot there, but to that, I only give that as a preface to answer your question. Sorry to go around the block here. But really what it comes down to, the risk is not much with regard to the city in terms of any kind of liability that would come back onto the city. Really the risk is that you have a public corporation that was created in 2010, and if any subsequent action by the legislature was to take place, and we see this sometimes with regard to like PFDs and other things, they will refer back to things that were created prior to that legislation. So oftentimes you'll see where they'll say PDAs that were created or public facilities district that were created prior to 2018 or whatever. So you're going to lose any of the abilities since you have one that's been created and it is a certain time and place. So you would lose any ability to take advantage of potential legislation down the road that would be favorable to PDAs. Is that going to happen? I don't know. The probability of that, who knows? I'm just saying that once you give this up, if you decide to do that, it's now no longer going to be in existence. So and so it's not something that happens very often, but I think it's something we can certainly get across the line if that's what council wants to do.
Thank you, Mr. Ferguson. Mr. Green?
Thank you. Deputy City Manager Sigdal, just one question here. I'm looking down the paragraph and I appreciate your presentation here. It says that the city's role in overseeing the agency's day-to-day operations is limited. And then there's a little bit more information in that paragraph. But what is our role? Do we have much of a role beyond what that is? And I guess if I can just preface this a little bit more, it just seems like, that they're given this power, but we don't have, I appreciate the safeguards and the firewall that Mr. Ferguson was just explaining, but it just still seems like we're creating this, we're, giving them this money, and I appreciate the firewall, but we have very limited means of checking in on them. So I'm just curious what those are specifically.
You're spot on in terms of what your responsibility is to appoint the right board. And so you appoint the board. And then the next place is that every year you are funding an organization. There's certain things that you want back. And so you select the people and then you are telling them with certain amount of funding is what you would want back from a PDA. And so those are the two places where the council can truly, for the lack of better words, have the power. So because it is a separate organization, so you appoint the people that you see fit, and then you essentially, as you're handing out public funds, you tell them the expectations of what you want back from that.
No, and thank you. And I, appreciate you mentioning, in 2023, some of those going forward, expectations that were given for last year. But just to follow up, does the city have a right or, have they created a pattern in the past of seeing, can we see some of these minutes from these meetings? Can we see some of those things? Were those ever asked for in years past? Or, is there some type of precedent for doing that? Or just any kind of follow-up from year to year before new funds were given?
There is a report that DPDA is obligated to present to council on a yearly basis. And I believe that would be the follow-up on a yearly basis. Would that be right?
So really what your authority to get that kind of accountability, the only tool that council has really, as Ms. Sigdal was saying earlier, in terms of being able to appoint the board members, and if you don't feel like those board members are doing their job, you have the ability to remove them by resolution. So that's pretty easily done. But other than that, really all you have is the power of the purse, is based on what you're going to be able to require for them to do to be able to continue to receive any kind of city funding. Now, obviously the city wasn't their only funding source and hasn't been over the many years, but there's been, just in my time over the last 5 years, there's been a lot of effort to try to find ways to get that accountability through the agreement, the quote funding agreement that we've always referred to. And it's a very limited tool to be able to accomplish that. So it's a tough scenario where you're allowed to create this organization, you're allowed to appoint the board, but after that, they're really on their own, and you can't, quote, micromanage those types of day-to-day events. You really don't have any other tools to do that other than requiring certain things that you may want to continue to get funds. So that's really your only other tool.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I have no further questions for now, but I'd like to make a comment when we're all done, but I want to get out of the way of the other council members. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Councilmember Bras.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Action, you kind of alluded to this a little bit. As far as the, what is it, second to the last slide here, the pending items. These are operational debt. So upon dissolution, who pays for this? Is that from the sale of the assets?
So what you're talking about is essentially dissolving the corporation and settling up the liabilities, assets
Right.
of what's remaining. There is, yes, that's how that would go down. There's not going to be, there's not any money, as I understand it, to satisfy these. And the assets wouldn't even come close, as I understand it, to being able to remedy these outstanding liabilities. So that is something that the city can provide the funds to make folks whole. Probably the fourth one down, I would recommend the state auditor's office, probably money well spent. But those are things that are going to need to be reconciled. But to be clear, the city is not liable for those debts. You can pay them, and I think you certainly can, especially under the statute allows us to provide funds to maintain the solvency. Now, I would recommend obviously paying those before we go through the dissolution process, because I think that's where we're protected and maintain our limitation on any other liability. But yes, so technically speaking, that should come from the sale of any assets and to satisfy those debts. But at the end of the day, if there is a deficiency, that's the reality. There's no requirement for the city
Just a
that I'm aware
follow-up
of.
question. I do have a quick follow-up question. Are these items still accruing? So like the software subscriptions, are they still collecting?
Yes, I believe the services have been canceled at this point, but the payments have not been made, so if there's any late fees, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Bras. Councilmember Perales.
Thank you, Mayor. I got comments and then just a few questions. So, yeah, like I said, I said the last meeting, this report was damning. It was horrible, beyond words, really. I'm going to go ahead and just say the Washington State Auditor's words that she issued. This report really showcases a lack of leadership, both at the city level and at the authority level. A total lack of adequate documentation for the use of public funds. We got some more background information. I mean, this has been going on for a long time. Very bad accountability audits. And I remember attending Cinco de Mayo stuff from time to time. Was more with the Fire Foods Festival. Very limited role, volunteer. And, I guess it does fall back on the city and does fall back on the city council during those times. I think we should, again, I don't want to go on this tangent about past city managers, city councils, but someone should have stepped in a very long time ago. And really, I would say the last couple of years, when we're not getting the stuff we need, ensuring that they have the right documentation in place, and when they have these audits, that there's no findings. I mean, if I was on the council, again, hindsight's 2020, and I saw finding after finding, and through my day job, a lot of I go through audits and stuff, and after finding, you would think people would step in. And I'm glad the city stepped in this last year, but, the Tri-City Herald has documented this stuff. La Voz newspaper has documented this stuff. It just goes to, like, what are we doing? We're not holding anyone accountable. So the title of this report is very fitting, but we're not holding people accountable. And I think it's probably prudent to go ahead and dissolve this organization. But at the same time, we need to hold these people who have done this stuff for a number of years accountable. The current board, why can't they come in and we ask questions? Why didn't they give any comments to the audit? It said in the report, the guy reached out. Maybe they didn't get a hold of them. At the same time, I think this last couple of years were pretty bad, with going over budget on the two Cinco de Mayo parades ago. Like, we need to hold these people accountable. So at the end of the day, I'm torn about dissolving it because, again, the entities, the businesses are suffering by not having something like this. We're not going to have the Main Street program and so forth. DPDA has done some good things, but we put these people in this place because we felt like there were leaders, again, going back to board members and executive directors, but now we're left to clean this up. And this is a brand new city council. So for me, I'm glad we're talking about dissolving it, but at the same time, I believe we need to talk about, being a little transparent about what we're going to do to ensure these people are held accountable. Whether it's these current board members, past board members, executive directors, what have you. But we need to provide transparency to the community because this is a waste of tax dollars. Again, I was very critical before I was on this council about the DPDA. I did talk about dissolving it at one point. I think we just need to get rid of it or just get a whole bunch of new people. Something needs to happen. But like I said, I would like this collective body to ensure that the city staff and the proper authorities go after these people and hold these people accountable. Because someone's gonna have to pay this bill now, more. And I don't wanna be paying for that. I don't think the taxpayers should be paying for that. So that would be my comment there, and my question is, are we looking into doing something about getting these people, and providing accountability to these individuals? Again, I'm not tossing names out there, but again, we don't know who did it. The report says that, we don't know. Could have been executive directors, could be board members, and what have you, but, I mean, you're talking about lots of money. And so, and also, like, what are we gonna do now? What's gonna be that vehicle for downtown to spur economic development, build community, culture, spur, businesses to come down? Like, we don't have that. And so, those are my two questions, really, and I don't know where to go with this. I'm sure a lot of people on this, on DICE are thinking the same thing. Like, I'd hate for a DPTA entity to go away because we've spent a lot of money on a master plan, and now we don't have anything. I mean, that was a good chunk of that master plan was DPTA and their involvement, and now that's gone. So, I'll go ahead and yield my time, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Were you looking for any response from staff?
Yeah.
I guess I see Mr. Lincoln's mic lit up, so I'll defer to you.
So, council member, I think that one of the main reasons that the city stepped in to help out with events and the PSK was to try and create a continuation of some of the services. So I think as far as what entity or what does a continuation of connection to the culture of downtown, I think that's up for the city council to provide some direction if there's another organization or another entity. I'd also caveat that the 501c3 portion of the DPDA, which is the vehicle for having the Main Street program, is something that a group of residents, business owners, citizens could easily establish again and work with the state to bring back that particular portion of the program. And as far as what specifics the city should do next steps when it comes to authorities, I would look to legal, but I imagine he's going to suggest that would be more suited for an executive session than open session. Happy to answer any other questions if there are.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lincoln. Mr. Milne, I saw Mr. Grimm, your light's on, but I don't know if you want to.
No,
Do you have a question, or were
Nope.
these the comments you were holding?
comments, yes, sir.
All right, I'll note your like. You can leave it or turn it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I had a kind of quick question. Obviously there's other cities the same size of us. What have they done? I mean, I know obviously when it was opened up and put this forward in 2010, obviously there was a need for it. So is there other cities that obviously, was it just like more of like a leadership, or how would we know? I mean, I know we're talking about dissolving it. I'm fine with that, but you kind of want to know, what did other cities do maybe a little bit different, or what other avenues we should take to make it a success? I mean, obviously we do want, a downtown that's vibrant, and do you have any, was there any other cities that we looked at or that are doing it that were successful that we maybe could piggyback on some of their ideas?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we'd been doing several months ago was working with the state's Main Street program consultants. So I think there's probably some validity and some benefit of helping or encourage the recreation of a nonprofit that's focused on some of the Main Street tenants, and that includes economic development, and there's, I think, 4 main pillars of a strong Main Street program. I'm not sure, it's been a while since I've looked at how many cities have PDAs. I don't think it's nearly as substantial as the ones that have Main Street programs. So I think one of the other complications that existed was the sort of merger of two entities, so the PDA and a Main Street 501c3. And I think there wasn't really that clear delineation when you're wearing the hat of a 501c3 or wearing the hat of the PDA. Same with the funding. It seems like the mixing of the funds really caused some problems in past audit results as well. So we can find out how many people have PDAs, but I think you're more likely going to see that the Main Street program and a downtown association, to use a loose term, is more likely what you would see in a community our size, smaller, larger, both.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Milne. I have a handful of questions before I circle back to Mrs. Grimm and Harpster. Can we roll back 2 slides, please? The SAO audit results. The other way. And now it's going to be like 4 slides. That one. One more. Okay, there we go. Grant funding, $630,000. Do we know what our exposure as a city is on that? I understand that we've talked about technically none. And I know that's like the great legal answer. But there's that, and then there's like the public answer that we may want to contemplate. Failure to validate grant compliance. I mean, theoretically, there could be exposure to that whole sum. Is that correct?
No, and the reason why I would say that is because it sounds like, reading the report, under grant funding, the auditor states that the authority did not have adequate process in place to ensure it passed on private grant funding to eligible people and businesses. So while an accounting problem and maybe even a potential internal issue with regard to handling of that wouldn't necessarily be related, as I understand it, that wouldn't be necessarily related to public funds.
Okay. I think I really appreciate that answer, and that hopefully that helps the public hear that. Do we know what risk of accounts payable that would be legally required, whether it's through state or other entity funding, that we'd have to pay back?
None, because it would not be a finding if there was a significant liability that you would be seeing a fraud report, and that would be the highest level. And the state auditor's office did not issue a fraud report. This is a finding. And so essentially what they're saying is that their internal controls are poor, that they're not following processes that are subscribed for public agencies. And of course, not keeping invoices around is a bad process, but it does not rise to the level of fraud as per the state auditor's office. So the liability is none.
Okay. Can either you or Ms. Buckley explain the difference between those two, whether it's the distinction of what's at risk or what also must be proven or demonstrated through the SAO report?
My understanding with the fraud report, or the distinction between the two, is they start at the same place. They're looking at the activity that's occurred and all the supporting documentation and internal controls and segregation of duties to make sure that policies and procedures and state laws and regulations are being met. Where it turns into a fraud report is when they can follow the transaction all the way and be able to see that it was not just a matter of poor accounting, it was a matter of the accounting shows that someone mishandled the money and used it for a wrong purpose.
Okay. And just to make this publicly restated, we have none such, no fraud findings, correct?
Correct.
Okay. With that, I'll note that we're talking about years 2021, 2022. So we're still potentially at risk for 23 and 24 in a forthcoming audit, correct?
Yes, they'll audit 2023, and we were helpful as much as we could be for the rest of 2022. And then, of course, we can continue to assist in 23, and we will give them the information that this, on the city side, where we have taken over and are taking care of operations for PSK and the farmer's market, then those things fall under our umbrella now, and we'll give them that information. So, but it will continue, and I think until the entity is dissolved. Or
Okay.
if that's the choice that's made.
So if I understood what you said correctly, the 24 audit would fall back on the city as we're currently assisting with operations.
It would not fall on the city. We're not assisting in DPDA operations. We have only reassumed operations for our assets. So those will be absorbed as any department or program that is run by the city is part of our audit. And then if DPDA continues to exist, they would be audited again with the same standards as they were through 2022. And as we have some information, we tried to assist in this most recent audit and always are as helpful as we can be to the auditor's office, but can only go so far as we don't have all the activity.
Okay. Thank you. I greatly appreciate that clarity. Obviously, there's still some risk, both the entity and potentially the city. As to the right next step, I think time will tell. I think we're on the path. Obviously, the dissolution has been recommended, but I also hear Mr. Ferguson reminding us there's also a pause button that might be wise to hit before we hit the eject button.
Well, I will say this, though. Something has to be done, one way or the other. And the reason why I say that is because the statute 3521-745 talks about how any city, which is towns, county, whatever, shall create a public corporation, commission, or authority pursuant to RCW 3521-730, which is what we did, shall provide for its organization and operations and shall control and oversee its operations and funds in order to correct any deficiency and to assure that the purposes of each program undertaken are reasonably accomplished. So at this point, with the outstanding debts known or liabilities known and the lack of assets, I think we're at the point where we're getting pretty close where we need to make a decision within the next probably couple of months or a month or so, just because we're going to have an obligation to either fund it, get it back on its feet and get it solvent, or dissolve it. I think that's really kind of where we're at.
And do we have a duty to do so within a certain amount of time in the statute or by case law, or is it just do it soon?
Well, you're hitting the nail on the head. There's nothing out there that I've been able to find thus far that gives us any kind of time frame, but obviously it would have to pass the reasonableness test.
Sure.
If we're just letting it sit idle, and it's going to be a de facto violation.
Okay. I appreciate that, and I look forward to additional counsel. Personally, I would prefer to have some of that in executive session before we come out here and make some decisions, because I think it's wise that we have the opportunity to discuss that and then bring the information out publicly. With that, I have no further comments or questions. Let's go to Mr. Grimm, then Mr. Harpster.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say that hearing about this on my first night on the council was like a gut punch. Just finishing the election season, super excited about advancing the city in a positive direction. To say that I was profoundly disappointed of the numerous catastrophic failures outlined in the audit would be an understatement. I don't want to marinate on this issue any longer than necessary, but I believe the voting public who turned over this council last year has given us a referendum to deal with things like this. I would like to see us criminally prosecute to the fullest extent of the law wherever applicable to recover as much of the public's funds as possible and to safeguard the public's resources and trust by making sure something like this doesn't happen again. We are a land of opportunity, and this is, such a blight on the positive things I know that we as a council want to do and go forward. And so, even some of those last comments, I guess, I would have one more question with council. Do we, it sounds like the state audit found this just to be more sloppy than a crime that's been committed. Am I hearing that correctly?
That was the report from the state auditor's office, that they found it to be sloppy in a significant manner, but that they did not designate this as a fraud.
Okay. Is there any recourse outside the state government, whether at the county prosecutor's office or somebody else that can look at this to see if a crime has been committed? Because part of it, I want to see the public's trust restored. Right now, I know there's a lot of uncertainty out there, and whatever we can do as far as recovering public money or criminally prosecuting where we can, I think would go a long way in building the public's confidence again. So I'm just curious, are there, maybe it's a question for Mr. Ferguson, do we have any outlets to go out to dig into this a little deeper? I think the public wants to know too.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm certainly happy to do that, but I would prefer to start with an executive session and walk you through your options before we move out to open session.
Okay. I have no further comment at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do want to mention that before we make any kind of decision, I'd want to hear from the public during public comment. And so my preference would be that this item is not a part of the consent agenda next week, but that we would give people the opportunity to speak on it and share their thoughts. Not saying that was already determined to be part of the consent agenda, but just wanted to mention that. And then also just wanted to express my appreciation to staff for taking on the additional responsibility of putting on these events and running the Pasco Specialty Kitchen and just ensuring that balls weren't dropped and that residents were able to continue to enjoy these events despite the past tumultuous years. So thanks.
I don't believe we have any intention of putting that on, one, for next week, because there's an ordinance that would have to be drafted, and two, it will not be a consent agenda item. Agreed.
Is the ordinance that was part of our packet not the ordinance that?
No,
That would be part of it. I think that's a draft though, so there's probably a little more work that we'd put into it to button it up, but that gives you a pretty good idea of the flavor of what that ordinance would look like.
Gotcha. Thanks for clarifying.
Okay, with that, it sounds like I think we have general thoughts on moving forward and seeing nods from staff that a little more information to council on our options of moving forward. Whether or not there's opportunity for criminal prosecutions will certainly be part of that discussion, and whether or not dissolution or transferring it or something else is the best solution. Obviously, if we're going to keep this thing alive, we're going to certainly need to retool it such that not only we, but the future board members aren't placing themselves in risk's hands by just taking over something that's not operated well. So with that, thank you. Appreciate that. And we will move on to item B, which is resolution interlocal agreement cable bridge LED lighting system. This is going to go again to Ms. Sigdell, and hopefully it's a little less controversial.
A lot lighter for sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. The topic in front of you is a request from staff and many of our partners about our cable bridge, which is a landmark in our community. We currently have white spotlights that were installed over 20 years ago, and I've learned quite a bit about lights through this process. This old technology is beautiful, but it has it's limiting, as in anytime you want to change colors, you have significant labor cost of where people have to go and put in the colored plates over the lights, and so it's limiting to change the facade of the bridge. Our desired state is something, this bridge I believe is in Fort Lauderdale in Florida, and we want to do something similar where we can change the bridge into an artistic feature of the community, and do it in a way that is efficient and not as labor intensive, and something that we can do on a regular basis. Because the cable bridge connects both Pasco and Kennewick, we have Osprey Point right there, Clover Island, and other features near the community that would also be benefiting from this effort as well. It will also raise awareness for Columbia River system overall. The cost, and this is just design cost, we're proposing is not to exceed $125,000. There is a construction cost that is estimated at this time to be over $2 million, and we're giving you the construction cost just as information because we need to look at the design first and figure out what is possible for this bridge. The construction is at this time planned to be a community-led fundraising effort, and Visit Tri-Cities would be leading that. There's some pros and cons to this effort. Pros is that it reduces energy consumption, lower labor cost to change and manage the lights, and it also increases placemaking, where the bridge, even though it's already a landmark, changing its colors for different themes would really, and festivals and holidays would really make it a unique place for people to come and hang out. The cons are, it is expensive. $2 million is a big price tag, especially when you think it's just lights. We need to work with many partners, including DOT, and it's an additional workload for all parties involved. Port of Kennewick, Port of Pasco, City of Kennewick, City of Pasco. We're all busy entities with a lot on our plate, so this is just another thing to do. And however, we do believe that we have a really cool bridge that is very unique. It has won awards in the past for its unique architecture, and that we could do better to showcase it, and that this effort would be worth it. At this time, all of these 4 agencies on the screen, we're requesting all of our boards and councils to provide approval for $25,000 to be contributed for the design effort. And so that is why we're here today, to see if council would be interested in moving forward and participating in this effort at $25,000.
Thank you. Oops. Thank you. I will offer one note. I think that's actually Jacksonville, Florida. Not Florida. It's fine. I
Thank
live
you.
there. They
I
do
got the
have a
state
cable
right.
bridge, but not with cool lights. So if we do this here, we'll have both the bridges combined into one. So we'll be even better than Jacksonville, which I don't know is saying much. Mr. Harpster, I see your light.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I didn't see, maybe I missed it. Who proposed this initiative? What agency?
I'm not 100% sure on this. This is something that I've taken over from Mr. Worley, so
Okay.
I'm getting caught up as well. I can look into that and get back to you.
I think the partnership really was kicked off by Visit Tri-Cities. They were the ones that have had conversations with us and Kennewick and talked about trying to get the fundraising going to use this as sort of a way to be more of a landmark and change lights for different events, things like that.
Okay, thanks for that. I'll just be frank. I think this is a ridiculous idea and a waste of money and time. And there's I've been attending these meetings for almost a year, and we hear from residents a lot that have a lot of complaints. Some of them unfounded, some of them that deserve our attention and the city's money. And I've never heard anybody talk about changing the lights. Now, that's not a terrible idea. I just think we have a litany of priorities that would take precedence over this. That's just my 2 cents. Besides that, as Ms. Sigdell mentioned, the staff is busy with a lot of other things. And, I kind of want to be selfish for our Pasco residents with our City of Pasco staff. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Harpster, Ms. Morales.
Thank you, Mayor. Quick question. On your graph here, you show Pasco, Kennewick, Port of Pasco, Port of Kennewick for $25,000 each. One of your slides says not to exceed $125,000. I'm assuming part of the fundraising is to help raise that other $25,000. And the reason I'm not seeing Richland here on this list is because there's no traffic from Richland through here. Yikes. I'm struggling with this one. I agree there's other priorities as well. If Visit Tri-Cities wants to help raise funds for this, wow, I think they would need more than $25,000.
So the fundraising would be for the $2 million. At this time, we would like to proceed with the $100,000 from these 4 agencies. However, we would get into a design contract that would be not to exceed. and if it does get to that 125,000 or over, then we would come back for additional funds from all of the from the cities.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilwoman Blaisdell.
Who's currently paying for the energy bill for the lights? And who pays for the labor when they have to change the lights? Or any of that information? Because if it's like energy consumption is an issue, I could see that this would be more beneficial. If we're just doing it for the looks, then it's completely different.
I will get back to you with an exact answer, but I believe that City of Pasco and City of Kennewick take turns paying for the energy bill. But I can get, I'm working, I'm 95% confident, but I will get back to you with 100%.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grimm.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My sentiments would be pretty similar to Mr. Harpster's. This would be really cool. I mean, let's face it, but I just have to agree with Councilman Harpster that I just think we have a lot of other priorities in the city right now, and especially with this new council seated that, you know, I think saving energy, as Councilwoman Blaisdell said, is important, but boy, this almost seems vanity to me. And so, yes, I would love to see us, as cool as it would be, to focus on some other priorities.
Thank you, Mr. Grimm. Mr. Milne.
Yeah, I would say that, I think when we talk about spending money, whether it's $30,000 or $40,000 on an audit for the DPDA, and we're talking about, I think our investment of $25,000 to make people think, hey, Pasco has something more to it, I think it would be money well spent. So, I mean, maybe I'm different with what the council thinks, but I would like to see if it's only $25,000 and then Visit Tri-Cities raises the rest of the money. To me, it seems like very low cost to do something that could go on for years and years and be very spectacular coming into Pasco and Kennewick. So I would be for it. Again, I think it's money well spent. If we had to pay the $2,000 or $2 million, yeah, then I would be a little in shock. But again, I just want to put up my thoughts that I think anytime you can make Pasco a prettier place or coming into Pasco more of an event, it just makes it where people want to spend more money or spend more time in something where it looks spectacular coming into Pasco. And so again, that's kind of my thoughts coming around rambling on here, but I hope we go ahead and do it.
Thank you, Mr. Milne. Mr. Perales.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I was kind of the same sentiment too. I think $2 million seems like a lot, but if Visit Tri-Cities can, fundraise, I would be all for it. I mean, I would be in favor of the $25,000 investment on behalf of the city. That'd be cool. I think it creates identity, creates a sense of culture. Just like Councilman Member Milne said, it entices people, and we need identifiers here in the Tri-Cities. And Cable Bridge is definitely one of them, and to enhance that, I think that would be pretty cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perales. So we've got a potential funding from the four entities of $100K, and not to exceed is the 125. Why not just go out at 131,250 or something like that to make sure we're covered and we don't have to gap that, or does that extra 25 come from somewhere?
That would be, if we go over that 100K, it would come from the two cities. So that was the agreement that, at least the proposal that was reached at the time. Again, that's a classic example of many partners trying to work together, and sometimes you can make few things work. But that is the proposal at this time. And so the 25K, if we do go over the 100K, the 25K would come from the two cities and not the ports.
Okay, so our full at risk for the design is 37.5.
That is correct.
Okay. I'm of the opinion that it's max of just shy of $40,000 is not. It's neither insignificant nor significant to our budget. I think to the extent that we can make an extra landmark, and I guess where I'd want to see it is some more committed funds prospectively from Visit Tri-Cities. Hey, look, we believe we've got $500,000 on hook. So your $25,000 in design is, you know, if it costs 2 million, a quarter of that's already funded from partners or committed from partners, obviously not funded. So I'd be more excited about this if we knew that Visit Tri-Cities had knocked doors, and maybe they have, and secured, you know, funding.
So I think that they haven't had the funding secured, though they're talking to some pretty big name donors, potential donors about this. And I think having a sharper idea of the budget, which would be the goal of this, and probably some demonstrated pictures of what it might look like. I don't know, I'm not a designer, but I think that's the goal, to use those to then market it to some of these names that you would definitely be familiar with. So I think that was their intention.
Okay, so do they need us to fund this prior to being able to move forward with that?
Yes, they
Okay.
want to do the design, get the pretty pictures, and then be able to approach they've started those conversations, but they're thinking it'll be more worthwhile, one, having a hard number so they know what the real fundraising goal is, and two, being able to demonstrate, here's what it looks like, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Okay. Do we have a temperature from the other three entities?
They've all passed this resolution.
Okay. So it's hanging on us. Fair enough. Obviously we can't take a vote. It sounds like that it's almost a split, so bringing it back would probably be wise.
We'll do that, and
Not,
if
not
there's
on
any,
consent, of course.
yeah, of course, and if there's any other commentary that we can learn from Visit Tri-Cities, we'll add that to the document as well.
That'd be helpful. Thank you very much. Seeing no further lights, let's move on to item C, resolution, project acceptance for West Pasco Water Treatment Plant Phase 1, and this is going to kick to Miss Sarah.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. For this presentation, I actually will introduce our senior engineer, Puna Clark.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Okay, let's see. Today for the resolution for the West Pasco Treatment Plant Phase 1, project number 16008. The resolution for project acceptance for this project. Here I presented a site map showing the West Pasco Treatment Plant shown with the yellow star. The project is completed. Wrong button. So we've done installation of membrane treatment, as well as appurtenances, as well as expanding the treatment plant from 6 million gallons to 12 million gallons. You can see from the picture on the left, a site plan, as well as a rendering of what we've done here at the treatment plant. So we've got some before pictures showing our existing strainers, and on the right picture you'll see where we will be expanding eventually to future 18 million gallons. Also, we have some additional before pictures where we will be putting some of our proposed items currently finished, and some in progress pictures. The one on the left is building our clarifier and our new pump station building. And after pictures, we have a new catwalk and other items. And this is our new pump station building and our clarifier with its catwalk. So here we've presented our final construction cost at $9,121,000, and the bid award was $8,411,830. We had 18 change orders. The final project costs were 11.2 million, and we had project funding of 11.2 million. And we had funding from drinking water SRF loan of a 20-year with 1.0 interest. And I want to point out that because we completed the project early, we had a reduced interest rate. It was originally 1.75% interest. We had ARPA grant as well. And our reduced, the difference between costs and our funding was about $18,000. And do you have any questions?
Thank you for the presentation. Mr. Perales?
Oh, only question I had was, what was the design estimate with everything accounted for? I mean, it came out to about 11 mil, but what was the kind of engineer's estimate, I guess?
I don't have that on hand, but I can get back to you tomorrow.
Thank you. And then I see that the bid for construction ran about 8.5% over. I know you said there were 18 change orders. Was there anything specifically, obviously, you know, a couple of big ticket items, specifically the raw water vault replacement? Was that something that was unforeseen and maybe, you know, out post use of life, or do we know why that was unaccounted for and then popped in at 400K?
So we did have to make a change in design for that specific valve vault, and it's fairly deep. It's 7 feet deep. It is for a 30-inch water main valve.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, thank you for your presentation, and welcome to the podium for the first time. Thank you very much. With nothing else, we can move on to item number 6, miscellaneous council discussion. I see Mr. Lincoln.
Ms. Sarah actually has a couple items to bring up.
Good evening again, Mayor and council members. I have 2 items to share with you. The first one is related to an upcoming item on next Tuesday's meeting. It is related to Lewis Street overpass. We have been negotiating 9 small change orders. They address some adjustments to utilities and connections to those utilities, as well as some modifications to a traffic control related to the closure of Lewis. So we'll have a full presentation on those items. These 9 change orders will be in the order of $100,000 for that project. We want to support the project and its advancement. That's why I'm providing this quick update today and hoping we can have a full discussion on the regular meeting next week. The second item is related to Lewis Street itself. The roadway will be closed between Oregon and 2nd Avenue. That is the underpass will be closed starting, or it's planned to be closed starting on February 26th for 8 weeks to allow for the connection of the bridge to the Lewis alignment. After those 8 weeks, we anticipate opening the bridge for traffic. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sarah. Seeing nothing else from staff, Ms. Barras.
Sorry, just a real quick follow-up question. What will be the impact to the traffic around that area?
So there's going to be traffic detours. Our outreach has begun, and you can expect to see more outreach in all kinds of media, including social media and, of course, traditional media. There also will be reader board signs along Oregon and Lewis so that travelers are advised of the change in traffic patterns in the upcoming weeks. Other than that, emergency vehicles will be able to use the bridge, although the bridge is not paved and will not be paved at the time they're allowed to use that route. So all that work has been coordinated with emergency services.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing no additional lights, we will, Miss Sarah, I appreciate you mentioning we will not be here next Monday. Rather, we'll be here next Tuesday in observation of President's Day, Monday. So we'll see you next Tuesday at 7. But good news is we're not quite done for the rest of the night. We do have need for executive session, and we do have one item, a consideration of the minimum offering price for sale or lease.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, that was the wrong RCW. So we need to switch to RCW 4230-110I for potential litigation.
Okay, how long do we need? 20 minutes?
Same thing, 20 minutes. It was just, sorry, there was some miscommunication
Yeah.
about the nature of the executive session. Sorry about that.
That's okay. So I will pull that off, and we are going to go into executive session under 40 RCW 42.30.110 subsection I, related to potential litigation or potential litigation for the total time of 20 minutes. Council, does anyone need a restroom break before? Can we do that in 4 minutes and start at 8:20? All right, so we're gonna break for 4 minutes and get on executive session at 8:20 and hopefully be back at 8:40. Thank you. Good evening. It is now 8:40 and executive session is completed. That leads us into item number 8, which is adjournment. So we are adjourned for the evening. Have a great President's Day, and we will see you next Tuesday.